Evolving with the cosmos. The cosmos is full beyond measure of elegant truths, of exquisite interrelationships, of the awesome machinery of nature. The surface of the earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean. On the shore, we've learned most of what we know. Recently, we've waded a little way out, maybe ankle deep, and the water seems inviting. Some part of our being knows this is where we came from. We long to return, and we can, because the cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. Carl Sagan.
So perfect. Well, welcome everyone to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle sponsored every Saturday afternoon by Still and Moving Center, also more recently by Still and Moving Meditation Fellowship. And we are this week in this year of evolving with the cosmos, taking up the topic of self-surrender. We really fortunately have with us Skylar Riella, and she is someone who I have witnessed self-evolving throughout my entire several years of knowing her, maybe about 5 now. In any case, it's something that I have seen her do in a way that's always moving toward the greater good, the good of the whole. It's not just self-progress on her own behalf. And that has really inspired me. When I ask her about topics, themes in this year's almanac that might interest her, she mentioned this one of self-surrender. And I thought that this idea of that I take as meaning yielding to a greater self, a self of all, perhaps. I thought, oh, how perfect. So I'm so pleased to have Skylar join us, and her friend Nicholas is beside her. So it's nice to welcome you here also. So Skylar, go ahead. Take it away for us.
Thank you, Renee. Yes, so thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm so happy to be here and the new meditation fellowship. I have a fellow meditator with me for our Wednesday meditation group, so that was awesome. And I just prepared a few slides. I hope that this will be mostly conversation, but to give a little brief introduction about me, I'm a mental health movement and art advocate. And I currently work and have worked for 3 years at the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So I have a lot of experience with people on the other line of what I'm going to talk about, which is the 12-step program, people who are going through 12-step to recover from addiction. I also have personally gone through a 12-step. So I'm going to explain a little bit about my concepts of self that I received from that and from my other more Eastern philosophical training, how it interfaces with recovery, addiction, and then hopefully we'll have a very beautiful time for Dharma sharing, to share our own Ike and Manao. So with that, I'm going to take it away and share my screen. Oh, aloha, David.
Aloha.
All right, everyone can see okay? Excellent. So this is Self-Surrender, a GEMS talk from the basis of the 12-step recovery, as I've experienced and know it. But before we jump into it, I'd love to hear from you in the Zoom room, or Nick. What does it mean for you when I say self? Just a couple people popcorn style, very off the top, but what does it mean, self?
Depends if it's with a small s or a large s for me.
Can you quickly elaborate on the difference?
I think of the small s self as the ego self, and the large S self, or capital S self, as the greater self, individually, but also collectively, the self of all.
Definitely. Yes. And now, do you have anybody else who wants to share anything around self?
Well, for me, what comes to mind, it was the word individualization. So I didn't expand, but that's what came up.
Individualization, yes. Thank you, Melanie.
Mhm.
So, there are many different ways to define self. Probably there are more definitions than there are people here today. But yeah, similar to what Renee said, I, in fact, had that. I understand self as a difference between the lowercase self, the egoic self, and the capital S self, which is a more holistic and connected, maybe not a higher power, but certainly a deeper self within. I also would love to have everybody keep in mind, as I do my little talk, on the difference between giving up, like I give up, giving up, versus giving up. What it actually means to surrender. And I'll be talking a little bit more in the Western tradition of self, as 12-step was made in America with the help of a Swiss psychologist, Carl Jung. But yeah, if you are coming from a more Eastern perspective, as I know many of you are, maybe keeping in mind the yes and of Eastern philosophies and how ego and no self might intersect and interweave into this conversation. So with that, let's jump in. How many people have heard of 12-step recovery before? Just off the top of my head. Oh, like 3 people? Oh, 4? Yeah. Okay, actually most people have. Good. It's very famous. It's been going on since the 30s, and yet there's a lot of misinformation I found as well. But basically, the 12-step program started with AA, which you see in the middle of the right-hand side there. But it has sprung out into so many different and interesting recovery groups, from addiction from narcotics, addiction from gambling, sex, other behaviors. I firmly believe that everybody is addicted to something, though it may not be readily apparent. But the definition from the 12-step website, aa.org, says 12-step programs are mutual aid programs supporting recovery from substance abuse, behavioral addictions, and compulsions. And just while every group is different, there are some veins of similarity. It's always a peer-to-peer fellowship, meaning there are no professionals, there's no group leader or psychiatrist or what have you. It's all by addicts for addicts. And very specifically, there's a spiritual and communal focus towards healing versus, say, a medical focus of drugs or therapy. It is much more based on community support externally and that internal, deeper self connecting with that. And I had fun researching the history of the 12 steps, actually. I didn't know a lot of this before I prepared for the speech. But apparently an affluent Rhode Island alcoholic, the Oxford group, Carl Jung, and many other people had a hand in the divine timing of the fellowship. So it started off in the 30s in America, which was a very difficult time for many Americans. The stock market had crashed. It was the Great Depression, and many people were turning to alcohol. There was a man named Roland H., who was that affluent Rhode Island I think he was a former stockbroker, and he had become addicted to alcohol. So he went to Carl Jung, and he was trying to receive therapy. And it was Carl Jung who first told him, "Your case is medically and psychologically hopeless. There is no way to cure you from this other than to have a spiritual awakening." And so he connected him to the Oxford group, which was a religious movement in the United States at that time. And this I see is using the self to achieve no self. It's a very sneaky, very, very Western, I think, way of getting around that whole ego. So the Oxford House was a religious group with 6 principles. It was popular in the early 20th century. And they practiced a formula for self-improvement, which was performing self-inventory, admitting wrongs, making amends, using prayer and meditation, and service, carrying the message to others. And this is what my mentor would say, stealth religious awakening. It starts as self-help and, improvement, productivity. Sounds very Western, but you go through it and it's, you get to a similar no self state, I think, as many people who went there the direct route. So Roland practiced this. He was able to give up addiction to alcohol. He shared it with a friend, who then shared it with the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous and writer of that big blue book that you'll see a picture of, called Bill W. And Bill was actually very, very close to dying. When he found out about this, he was in a Manhattan hospital, suffering from many effects of long-term alcoholism. And having practiced these 6 principles, he had what he defines as a spiritual awakening. I wonder if somebody would be willing to read the quote I have here, and this is from his writings. Would you be willing to read it?
Sure. This
Awesome.
one right here.
Yeah, that one.
If there to be a God, let him show himself. Suddenly, my room blazed with an indescribable white light. I was seized with an ecstasy beyond description. In my mind, I stood upon a mountain where a great wind blew. A wind, not of air, but of spirit. It blew clean through me. Then came the blazing thought, you are a free man, so this is the God of the preachers.
Mm-hmm. So having had this spiritual awakening, he was inspired to stop drinking and to spread this message to others. He actually wrote to Jung explaining how, and thanking him for the circuitous route that led to him recovering from alcoholism. And Jung shared this wonderful thing. He said, the only thing that can free us from addiction is the spirit. And he said it was spiritus contra spiritum. Spirits are the Latin word for alcohol. And so he posited that our addictions, our cravings, or our aversions are secretly an emptiness and desire to know the divine and to merge towards that higher capital S self. And so that was the basis of Alcoholics Anonymous, which was the basis of all the other 12-step programs that are in effect today worldwide. And so I included the 12 steps, and this is for the program that I went through, which was Codependence Anonymous. So it is a little bit different, but all the 12 steps for each program are very, very similar. And coming from a house where there was a lot of addiction growing up and mental health challenges, I knew I would never drink. I would never use drugs. I didn't want to go down that route. So I thought that I had just escaped and was, totally free of any sort of intergenerational whatever. But it was not true. I still had that great desire to control that I consider self-will. And it wasn't until I went through the 12 steps about 4 years ago that I was able to recognize that in myself, despite many, many years of Buddhist training. And so I think, do I have any volunteers who'd be willing to read, or should I just go ahead and read the 12?
I can read.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yeah. Okay. We admitted we were powerless over others, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of correct character. 7. Humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to other codependent and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thank you so much. And yes, while these are the 12 steps, and I think they all are very powerful, I highlighted the first 3 because that is the basis of any of the 12-step recovery programs. And it is all about surrender. You know, we are powerless. We cannot do it all on our own. We need to become humble and to give up. And I found that these were very helpful, but I am an overachiever, and I wanted to find a way to translate these 12 steps into something that was more close to my background. I didn't grow up in like a very theist religion. I actually wasn't raised with any religion, but quite early in my teens I became Buddhist. So I created a translation, my own 12-step Buddhist style. And this was definitely not my endeavor solely. These are all extremely borrowed in concept from Thai or Thich Nhat Hanh, who leads the Plum Village Buddhist tradition. And also my friend Pablo, who was born and raised in China and is also in the tradition. We worked on these together. So I'll go ahead and read these. 1, we acknowledge that there's a deep suffering within us, that the path that we have been walking on has been causing deep suffering within us, and that this path to ill-being is unsustainable. 2, came to a realization that by surrendering the grasping ego self and taking refuge, whether in the 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, or whatever higher or deeper power or being that is of your understanding, we can put an end to suffering and meet all our needs. 3, made a decision to surrender the attachment, aversion, and indifference of the ego self and entrust ourselves wholeheartedly to the path of awakening. 4, look deeply and fearlessly at both the wholesome and unwholesome seeds in our consciousness and in our ways of being. 5, emitted to ourselves, Sangha or community with whom there is trust, and the awakened one within, how we have been unskillful and watered the seeds of suffering in ourselves and others. 6. Vow to transform our unwholesome, unskilled, and negative habit energies and ways of being. 7. Offered up our suffering to the energy of enlightenment and allowed it to return to source. 8. Vowed to look deeply at and to practice loving kindness and compassion to those we have harmed and to those who have caused us suffering. 9. Practicing beginning anew, which is reconciliation, with those who have suffered from our unskillfulness wherever possible, except when to do so would harm them or others. 10. Continue to observe our habit energy to recognize and transform unwholesome seeds while cultivating and watering our wholesome ones. 11. Vowed to practice diligently in order to empty ourselves of all delusions so that we may be filled with the energy of enlightenment. And 12. Knowing joy and transformation are possible, we vow to never enter into nirvana alone, but to continue practicing and sharing the teachings with others until all beings are free. And I think that the spirit of one is contained in the other and vice versa. When I say that, these feel quite universal to me, at least, of the ways that we get in our way as human beings, and as a path to releasing that craving or aversion, whatever it is, that causes us to stay in self-will, and whatever fear causes us to stop from surrendering and try to change what is. Through following these, I found that it has been a very, very helpful path for me, and hopefully it is something that brings up some seeds in you as well. And with that, I have some questions for all of us, and so we can open the floor to anybody who wants to share here. My first question is, in all the 12 steps, powerlessness and surrender are the base floor of recovery. And I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts on why that is. Or, of course, if you have any of your own personal experience and feel comfortable to share. These are some suggestions, but open to everyone. Yes, Truth.
Oh, hi there. I was thinking that perhaps because of all our, how do you put this, like aggregates or aspects of ourselves, the way that formula is constructed, going forward with that formula, it's that formula won't solve the problem. So in that sense, that formula is powerless.
Yeah, I like that. When you talk about aggregates, the things that, do you mean the things that we're made up of?
Well, in a sense, our mental framework of what we're made up of, perhaps someone who's studied these things could describe it better.
Yeah, well, we say in Buddhism the 5 skandhas, so feelings, perceptions, mental formations, habit, energy, and consciousness. And
Yes, and the impressions as well as the samskaras.
Yeah, definitely. And so if I understand you correctly, it's like we can't take something down from the inside. We can't overcome what is by using what is. We need something else. Am I hearing you right?
Yes, I mean, someone who has individuated, so to say, gotten to that aspect of themselves, which is individable, the witness aspect, which is of the same essence as the universe and shared with everyone else. If they haven't realized that aspect of this themselves, and even if they have, that they may have hangups, but anything less than something like that, you might be obstructed.
Yeah, definitely.
Skylar, I'd like to step in for just a moment. If we are going to keep the questions on the screen, I want to give everybody a way to see more of the people, which to me is always super helpful.
Yes.
So there's a little bar that it comes between yourself and the screen with the questions, and it looks like the handle that you would use to slide a window screen open. And you can just take that and slide your screen and shrink the questions smaller. And then you will be able to see those of us in the room. And also, if you want to see those of us in the room, up on top, there's something called, in the upper right corner, there's a square and 3 dots beside it, and you can choose the gallery mode.
Okay, let me see layout side by side.
Or yeah, that's another way. But I think you don't have to do anything differently, Skylar. Yeah, I'm just telling everybody else. Now that makes it so tiny we can't see it.
Uh-oh. Okay, content only. We're back.
Yeah. Okay. So that's just if you want to see more people,
Yes,
and
I can
still
see.
be able to see her questions.
I think I can see everybody. Can everybody? Yeah.
We're good.
Please adjust as needed.
Yeah.
Do you have any input?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the 12 steps and having the courage, I think, to reinterpret it in such a way that it makes sense to your own thought formation, instead of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, like going, I don't really believe in God, or I don't understand this concept of self, or anything you could have used to just like forget about these 12 steps. But instead, you brought them into a way of your own personal, a way of conceiving it at a deeper level. And I just really am very congratulatory to you for doing that. It's a lot easier for somebody to go, oh yeah, whatever. There's something about that it doesn't quite ring true with me. So I guess I don't have to think about that. Bob.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for that as well. I thought the 12 steps put in Buddhist terms was really wonderful, because it takes away some of the terms that I get nervous with, So those are all my terms. That was wonderful. And I liked your questions. And the first question, I think, right, follows directly after those 12 steps of surrender and powerlessness. Because I think in a kind of a karmic term of the way we live the world, if you accept your karma, if you accept the way things are happening, then that's a kind of surrendering to a sense of I have power over it. I can do something about it. And that really is the opposite of what I would call a true self. A true self really accepts things as they happen and then decides what would be an auspicious or a healthy way of proceeding, an expedient way, a good way. So I love that kind of thing. And I really struggle with the opposite side of thinking, no, I don't like the way things are. I don't like that I just got diagnosed with a viral cold. And so I'm suffering through that and coughing and all this. I don't want that to be that way. And well, sorry, but the universe has spoken, and karmically speaking, that's the way it is. And, that's a surrendering to that's the way it is. And it's not an accident. It's based on past karma. It's based on the way the world has come together at this moment. There are no accidents. So you take responsibility for it, but you don't take, the sense of I can control it. So that's how I relate to that first question, but it's just a wonderful summary of what you said with the 12 steps.
Thank you. I think Cliff raised his hand.
Yeah, I did. See if I can get rid of it. So, most of us in the Western world, don't make this distinction between a lower, say, and a deeper self. We just have the self of the personality or whatever you want, the personal self. And it seems like all these forms of addiction, that you were mentioning, seem to be an effort to escape the burden of that self. So I was wondering, what is the difference between self-escapism through all these different forms, including your hotline, and self-surrender, and how can you use this 12-step program to help people in your work?
That's a great question. Thank you. Yeah. Something that was very helpful for me was recognizing that we have to go through self to reach no self. When I was 18, I stayed at the monastery for quite a few months, and I became Buddhist, and immediately was flung into, no self, no birth, no death, service, the bodhisattva vow to serve others selflessly. And it was quite a lot, going from 0 to 100. And there were certain aspects that I had not tended to in my own lowercase self wound. And I think that can be a good example of spiritual bypass. So if we go, let's see if I can go back. I went back too far. Yeah. Once we give up that self, there's a lot of other steps to do. If I go to the last one here, these are the 12 promises. And basically, by working the steps, these are the things we can have as fruits. And the first few are about feeling a new sense of belonging, new freedom. But then the next 3 are really important for that in my own journey, I've found, which is I see a new love and acceptance of myself and others. I feel genuinely lovable, loving, and loved. And you know what? When I was 18 and had all that pain going on, meditation really helped me to quiet all of that. And it gave me this purpose to help others. But I hadn't individuated. I think, as Melanie shared, I was still coming from a place where I felt quite small as an individual. And I realize now as an older person that I can't just jump. I really have to go through it and meet that small s self as a loving friend and take care of that small s self. Help that small s self get what they need before I can truly, without any strings attached, reach that capital S self. And this really helped me do that. With the process, I guess, that is the 12 steps. So how can the hotline help with that? Sharing this, of course. I share the 12 steps all the time, and many of us know the 12 steps. There's a really great prayer that I use despite not being related to Christian prayer directly. I think it's very helpful. I shared it in the email, but it's, universe, please grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So sharing that. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but one more thing I want to share around that beautiful question, Cliff, and share with what Bob said, is the idea of paranoia versus pronoia. And I would say at least a fifth to maybe a fourth of the people who call the line have some sort of paranoia. They feel like the world is out to get them, or other people are out to get them, and they feel very negative about that. and they either try to control or they run away from it through using drugs and alcohol. But I ascribe to pronoia, which is the maybe unfounded belief that things are happening for me rather than against me. And I think that that's a powerful thing to share, just verbally, to anyone we meet who's suffering from that paranoia.
Thank you.
Feel free to jump in if you have anything else to share about the first question. But the second question I'd love to explore with everybody is the difference between self-will, which is that, lowercase self, and capital S self-will or enlightened guidance. And how the heck can we tell one from the other? Because I still work on this too, quite a lot.
I can speak to that one. I struggle with this one a lot. I have really strong self-will implanted on me from ancestors who also had very strong self-will. And I've found that the only way I can get to that place of feeling that enlightened guidance, and it feels very different. It's an effortlessness. There's an effortlessness about it. I don't have to expend effort to follow this enlightened guidance, in my experience. That may change in the future. But yeah, I have to be in a place of quiet. And I'm in the same tradition as Skylar. I've found that place of quiet through meditation. I think there are many ways of finding it. But when I am in that place of quiet and I can really let go and like be powerless, not controlling anything, feeling safe in my body and all of that, then that enlightened guidance like can flow, and it's like my eyes expand. That's just a metaphor, but I feel more in touch with the present moment, and I have clearer ideas arise from that place.
Thank you, Z. Yeah, I heard that you need that quiet and that safety in order to connect to that deeper wisdom. Anybody else want to share on that?
Yeah, I'd like to share on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Melanie.
Oh, you know what? It's interesting because when I feel there's action, it comes from two different places. When I feel the self-will, I feel there's action that comes from enlightened guidance, which is from there's the physical and there's the ability to also allowing to be guided by a natural in an organic form. And then the self-will comes from that directed guidance, which is accessible. I guess I also can say maybe a bit of struggling with that myself, because when it's time, when are we in this embodiment of I see action with self-will when you are taking action, and when is the guidance is come to the intuition. There's two texture to that question. What is self-will? Yeah, I think and because then it's the same. When are we certain to move in that will in a healthy way? And there's something like that. It's still a bit not I feel they're separate and in the same time they come together, but one goes with the other when there's a trust and it comes to that first question of surrendering. And I think there's this thing that it's in continuity with the first question that was asked with the surrendering phases of allowing to flow into this to the guidance of is the intuition. That's what I feel towards that. I wanted to share because I'm very still to communicate and to put into words. It's a bit complex for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a very beautiful immersion. I love what you said about the two textures. I really resonated with that. Cliff?
Just to jump in really quickly, there is this saying that behind will stands desire. And so Krishna says in the second chapter of the Gita that a man is said to be confirmed in spiritual knowledge when he forsaketh every desire which enters the heart from without. So if we can distinguish between desires that are for something outside of our being, and that creates a self-will, a lower self-will. But if we have deeper desires, say for wisdom or for being of service to humanity, those are generated in the heart or come through the heart. So if we can distinguish between our, say, lower and higher desires, we might be able to distinguish between the higher and lower will, maybe, or something like that. But somehow there's surrender involved in all that, right, Melanie? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, these are very interesting things to grapple with. I mean, this is the quintessential struggle of the human condition, I think. I think we're doing great. Yeah, if I can jump in on that, definitely, yeah, the Bhagavad Gita shares a lot about that. And that, of course, was the basis of the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism. You know, desire is the root of suffering. And if we can remove those like earthlier desires, what you called like the lower desires, we can remove suffering. And then they go through the Eightfold Path, which is the Buddha's 12th step. But you know, something that I've found in my own life that has been very helpful when I think about lower and higher self or lower and higher desires, I tend to have a value judgment around that. And so I tried to reframe that in my head as, is this an underflow desire or an overflow desire? Am I wanting this because there's some emptiness that I'm seeking to fill or some hunger I'm seeking to fill? Or do I have so much of this that I'm just bursting, I'm overflowing, and I don't even need to do anything. It's just already pouring out of me. And I just need to allow it to continue pouring out of me. So that underflow versus overflow has been very helpful for me in when I try to question, you know, where is this coming from in my action?
Bob.
Something very similar to what Skylar just said. To me, the energy is between the self or mind. That's another term that Zen Buddhists use, is ordinary mind. But the mind is something that is our basic reality, our true home, our true self. And if we isolate it, which we normally do, that's our ego sense. I do this, I want this, I don't like this, I like this. All of that, the isolated self is the untrue self. And in Buddhism, the connected self, the net of Indra, the connecting to all other beings, is our true self. And that's the idea not of a self, but of a selfing, a verb. You know, the Eightfold Path is right speech. It's going into this thing and doing it in such a way that it's connected. It has nothing to do with the truth. You know, telling you the truth may or may not be right speech. If you're not ready to hear it, if I'm egocentric in saying I'm so wise as here's the truth, you know, whatever the connection is, if it's not connected, it's not the truth. And that's right action, right thought, right effort. And right speech is where I sort of feel it gets all real. Because then you have to really know, who's that other person? What are they wanting? What are they saying when they say this? And how can I respond in such a way that it's helpful for them, but meaningful for me? In other words, there's a true connection. And that to me is the Eightfold Path in a nutshell. And as you said, the Eightfold Path is the 12 steps for Buddhism, another way of putting that, Bodhisattva. So thank you.
Yes, I love that.
Somebody who always is speaking of giving up, which I think is very much related to something everybody has been saying here, is Mary. And from her Catholic perspective, she often thinks of giving it up to God. And I just wondered if, Mary, you want to weigh in here. And is there something that somebody else has said to regarding another tradition that you are seeing in regard to yours?
There's a lot of parallels. I honestly see a lot of parallels. And when what was discussed about community is very important. When I think of surrendering, I had this little discussion with my daughter, Malia, because I have a prayer that I say, and it's, "Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything." And she said, "Yeah, Mom, but doesn't the Bible say God helps those who help themselves?" So I think we were kind of doing cross. We weren't we weren't connecting, and it was just one of those things. I'll get to her again. Because yes, God does help those who help themselves. There's also certain things that we can't control. And instead of worrying about them, because worrying does nothing but waste your energy, waste your time, and it stops you from doing what would solve a problem. So, it's a wonderful, I love these discussions, even if they're different from how I was raised. Basically, we're all called to help each other and to be kind to one another. And what we project should be reflected back to us. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mary. Can I call David in if you have something you want to share with us? I know sometimes David's only able to listen in, so might not be possible for him.
I'm out working in the garden.
Oh, okay.
Yes, replacing the sprinkler system. Let's see. I was stuck back on the first question about powerless and surrender. I put it into the chat. But there's a principle in nature that what we resist persists. And so it's the end of the resistance that's the beginning of the healing. And as far as telling one from the other, it has something to do with something I think Cliff was pointing towards is this something that would be true for all people? Or is it just something for me? Is this desire for all beings? And that question may help us to discern higher from lower self. And there's something in the body as well. There's a sense of peace and calm. You might even be able to check your blood pressure or your blood oxygen level. There may be some way to discern within the body whether this desire is something that brings peace to the being versus something that maybe jacks up your adrenaline or cortisol or cortisone or whatever might come from something that's perhaps a little more selfish. Those are my thoughts. Amen.
Thank you so much, David. The truth. Come on back.
I want to say that I had created a diagram because I correlated the 12 steps with the zodiac, and I put it in the chat, and also the Buddhist nidanas. So there's an image in there if you want to check it out.
Ooh, the chat is hopping. I don't know if anybody else can see it, but I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, if we open a screenshot that Truth shared in the chat, you can see how he has compared the zodiacal signs with the 12 steps.
Well, the year started in springtime, and so that would be. Yeah, I put it in the diagram. You know, you have the four elements repeating the way that it does in the zodiac, and those being symbolical, according to Kuhn, of the senses, the emotions, the thoughts, the mind and the spirit, and the fifth, the quintessential element, like higher self in a way.
Yeah.
This is so cool. You didn't just make this, right?
No, I made it months ago.
Okay.
I was at somewhere, and someone I met, they were on a program, and like they were getting treatment, and so I came up with this and I sent it to them.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. This is so funky. I love it. I love the idea that like our ancestors were hiding like little bits of wisdom, like little hidden cookies for us to follow the trail of and find. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna chew on this later. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you're welcome to save it and use it if you like.
It's definitely worthy of longer consideration. Yeah. I always love to give everybody who'd like to an opportunity to share a reflection. So Nicholas, if you have something, don't feel pressured, but if you'd like to share, we'd surely like to hear.
I was thinking a lot about the first question. It kind of just made me think of kind of addiction. It's not, built overnight. It's often over a long period of time, just kind of built up slowly, piece by piece. And I feel there's, in self-surrender, some sense of openness to change. It's not necessarily throwing everything out, throwing your entire past out. It just kind of loosening your grip enough to, when anything is possible, and you're not looking to the past to decide exactly what your next step is. I just feel there's just this kind of mental openness. So.
Yeah, loosening the identification with your own life and past opens up a lot more paths forward.
With that phrase, anything is possible, I'm reminded of this new word to me that Skylar brought up, pronoia, opening ourselves even to the possibility that the universe might be doing something on our behalf, that it's on our side, because it's on behalf of all. So why would it not be on behalf of each of us? Beautiful opening with what you're suggesting. Thank you so much. Well, this is a point at which I often like to let folks share any takeaway that they've had from our conversation today. So we can do that in any order that you might like. And if you'd like, any final takeaways that one wants. Now, at the end, I'll ask Skylar to give a takeaway. She's really good at synthesizing, so she'll hear yours and give us something. I have a feeling. Bob.
Yeah, one takeaway I took away from the idea that the Eightfold Path, is a doing of things, and it's a path that's made by walking it. And when Mary was talking, I thought, the parables are a way of walking it. It's a very natural way. The Good Samaritan is just an example of that connection every step of the way, even though, in most cases, the Samaritans were not regarded as particularly spiritual. So I love the parables as a way of sort of talking about how we walk that path that is made by the walking of it, which I think relates to the 12 steps, but I think it definitely relates to the Eightfold Path.
Beautiful. Melanie, do you have a takeaway you'd like to share? Let's see. We need you to find that unmute button.
Thank you. I was saying thank you, Skylar, and Nicholas. You came as a duo. It was my first time in the fellowship space, so yeah, it's really nice because from the Bhagavad Gita and having the Bodhisattva and the Buddhism approach coming into that, it was right in it hit a spot for me. So I really appreciate your time and creating this space available for us to partake. And yeah, thank you. Namaste.
Go ahead, Cliff.
Well, I didn't really know anything, Skylar, about the 12-step program, but I really benefited, I think, a lot from hearing how you explained it all and the history of it, and also that its connection with Buddhism. And also I just enjoyed your presence. I think it would be reassuring to someone that's going through very difficult strife in their life to get you on the phone and talk through things. I can imagine you've done a lot of good for a lot of people in your calm but clear way of presenting deeper ideas that make them very accessible for everybody, I think. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How about Z?
I'm still here for a second. Takeaway. I don't know. I'm really excited to go to the beach. My parents just arrived. So
He gets to sing my praises all the time. He can tell me later. We're married.
Fluffy after this conversation. Thank you, Skylar, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, well, why don't, is there anybody else who wants to share a takeaway? I'd like to tell you about next week, and then let Skylar, in this case, I'm going to let you do the final takeaway. I think we are so grateful to you. It was really a clear and also just surprising presentation that you gave. It just like your rephrasing. So I'm going to let you finish. I will let you know that next week is going to be one in which we hear from Kelly Fraser. She's a student at Still and Moving who has been a scientist her whole life. And she's going to speak about a woman named Hypatia who lived at the time of the Alexandrian Library. She's somebody that we might consider to be a Renaissance person. She was so talented in, all the many fields of study that people flocked to hear her teachings. So her name is Hypatia, and Kelly's going to speak from, I believe, that historic scientific tradition on that topic. Should be fascinating. So, Skylar, let's have you take it to its conclusion today. Okay?
Well, I think I'll just say a gratitude to everybody for joining during this talk, because I got a lot out of it too. I feel as though it's so interesting, the Jainist looking at the elephant from different perspectives. And yeah, from the Catholic tradition, Buddhist, Hindu, you know, it really does underline how fundamental these struggles, this journey, is for all humans, not just now, but, you know, from ancient times and probably continuing with all the technological changes that we're getting. I don't see this being solved by any scientific anything. This really is something that we need to find and go through, each and every one of us, in ourselves. So thank you for sharing your perspectives. Everybody has such a unique lived experience of this too. So I'm just very grateful for the chance to share mine and to hear everybody else's. So mahalo.
And I think I never realized that the 12-step program had as a fundamental basis the idea that nothing's going to cure you on the outside. You've got to cure yourself with a spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm. You are helpless and powerless. It's like very very strong words of like, give it up already. I needed that. Give it up already, Skylar. Okay, fine.
Thank you all so very much, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you next week. Aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo. Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
Bye-bye.